Today we'll be doing Mathematics Paper 1, 2021. And then what happens? We're going to do question 1, which is algebra. And then we're going to do 1.1 and 1.2. And then also do other year question papers. And then we're here to learn, guys. Remember that. As you already know, we will be treating question 1, DBE 2021. So what I'll be teaching you guys is just to show you like how to work around problems in past papers so that you can get an overview. So we're going to start. If you have an equation like this and then it has a squared here, just know it's a what? It's a quadratic equation, right? So you're going to do what? You either factorize, guys. You either factorize, right? You can factorize, and then what happens is that because of here it's x squared, you're splitting the x's, and then what happens is that you're going to do what now? You're going to find the factors of 20. The factors of 20, it can be what? It can be 10 multiplied by 2. It can be how much? It can be 4 multiplied by 5. So these are the factors, or it can be 20 multiplied by 1. But like we can't take this one because of when we add or subtract, we want to get the value, the negative x, right? So we can also take this one, but we can take this one. You'll see why I say we take this one, guys. So let's take 4 and 5, right? And then they said the bigger number takes the first sign, right? The bigger number takes the first sign. So as you can see, negative 5 is the bigger number. So we're going to put negative here. And then what happens is that now, because if we want to get 20 when we multiply the two factors, so here it's going to be positive, because when we multiply both factors, it's going to give us negative 20. And then what happens is that when we add 4 plus negative 5, is going to give us a negative 1. So what happens is that we can therefore say x is equals to negative 4, or x is equals to positive 5. And that's that. Remember that every time in a question paper that you see round off to 2 decimal places, just know that they want you to solve using a quadratic equation. It means that there are no factors, right? So you're going to say x is equals to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then all over 2a. And then what happens is that you can say what? Firstly, we need a, we need b, we need c, right? Our c is the constant number, always the number that doesn't have any x or anything, so it's negative 6. And then what happens is that we want our b is always here, which is the negative 2, and then our a, it's 3. Remember, guys, that always the standard form of a quadratic formula, it's something like this: bx plus c, which is equals to 0. And then that's where we took our c. Our b is just in front of x, our a is just in front of x squared. And then that's how we find that. And then what happens is that you're going to do what now? They're going to insert them in the formula. You have negative 3 there. You have negative 3, you're going to put it. But now we want our b, right? So our b is what? Is negative 2. So we have a negative here, and then we're going to put what? The negative 2 that we're talking about, plus minus square root of b squared is how much? B, we have negative 2 squared minus 4a. Our a is how much? Our a is 3. So we're going to put it 3 here, and then c is how much? Is negative 6. Put negative 6 all over 2. Our a is 3, and then we put there. And then what happens? Negative multiplied by negative is positive. So you're going to have 2 plus minus the square root, and then all over 2 multiplied by 3 is how much? It's 6. And then just always know that if you have the number just like this, you can use a calculator. They didn't state that don't use calculator, right? You use a calculator to find that value. Now, if we put the value inside the square root on the calculator, we can see that we get 76. We're going to put 76 inside the bracket. Inside the square root, I mean. Then we put our 76 there. And then what? The next step we're going to do is that our x will be equal to what? You press the whole thing on the calculator, but you first take you say 2 plus square root of 76 all over 6 first, and then the second one you're going to say x is equals to, and then you say 2 minus square root of 76 all over 6. You took positive first, and then the second time you took the negative. You don't take them both. The calculator can give you both answers, you see. So you start with the positive and then you go to the negative. We have 1,76, 1,78 with 6 there, and then what you do is that you're going to round off 6 with the 8, and then you get 9. So what happens is that we have what? we have 1,79, right? And then what happens is that you're going to press the calculator again. Now, when we put the negative, we get how much? We get that, and then you press the SD there, you're turning it to a decimal. And then what happens is that it's negative 1, you're going to round off the 9 with the 1 there, you get 1,2. Remember, they said to 2 decimal places. And then you have the answers there. And then what happens is that now, because of the round off to 2 decimal places, you're done. That's all we wanted. Remember, guys, last year, when dealing with inequalities, be careful. Be very careful. Because sometimes you can replace the greater than with the what? With equal to. Remember, this sign means greater than, this sign means equal to, this sign means less than. And then what happens is that you can confuse the two signs with the equal to, because we are always used to equal sign, you see. So you need to be careful about that. So what happens is that in this case you have this, which is squared. When it's squared, it means that you turn it into 2 brackets, you see, greater than 9, right? And then what happens is that you can do what now? You can simply multiply this thing throughout, right? Then you can easily apply for the method whereby you do this multiplied by that, this multiplied by this multiplied by this multiplied by that, right? And then we see how much? We're seeing x multiplied by x is x squared, x multiplied by negative 1 is negative x, negative 1 multiplied by x is how much? It's negative x, and then negative 1 multiplied by negative 1 is how much? It's positive 1, because negative multiplied by negative is positive. And then what happens is that now we're going to do what? We're going to say this sign is greater than, remember that, don't change it to equal sign. And then we have x squared, this minus this is how much? It's negative 2x plus 1, and then you have what? Greater than 9. You bring 9 this side, and then you have x squared minus 2x, and then when you bring 9, it's going to be negative 9. You plus it with 1, it's negative 8, and then it is greater than 0. And then what happens is that you can select your 2 brackets there, and then you have x this side, you have x this side. And then what happens, the next thing you need to check is that you have what? You have negative 8 here. You find the factors of negative 8, and then what happens, you can take 4 multiplied by 2, it's 8, right? But the signs, be careful. What you can do is that the bigger number takes the first sign. Remember, always remember that. You have this, and then this, where this is positive. And then what happens is that when we do this, and then x is going to be greater than 4, or x is what? Remember, you have this, which when we bring it that side is negative 2. But always when you deal with inequalities, remember that the x remains, the smaller number changes the sign. So we're going to have x is less than negative 2. Remember, what you need to highlight is that the smaller number changes the sign. You see, it changed from greater than to less than. Always apply that. When dealing with anything that involves a square root in question 1, be careful. Be careful. At the end of your answers, right? When you get your answers, you need to do what? You need to verify them, because the other one may not be true, the other one may be true. So you have how much? You have 2 square root of x plus 6 plus how much? Plus 2 is equals to x, right? What you're going to do is that you're going to do what? You're going to isolate the square root on the left hand side there. You have negative 2, remember. And then what happens is that the next thing you're going to do is that you do what? You square everything. You square everything. When you square on the left hand side, you square on the right hand side. And then what happens when you square? You're trying to remove the square root. We remove the square root. Remember, we remove the square root by what? By simply squaring it. We remove it. And then the number that remains inside, it's our answer. You see? So we're going to do the same thing here. Remember, the squared here, it squares 2. And then 2 squared is 4. And then we're going to create a bracket there, because of everything that we'll be getting inside the bracket will be coming from the square root there. And then what happens is that you have x plus 6, remember? And then x plus 6 under the square root is going to enter in here, because you removed the square root. And then what happens is that it's equals to how much? The square means you split the brackets into 2. If it's 3 here, you split the brackets into 3. And then you have something like that. And then 4 multiplied by this is how much? It's 4x. 4 multiplied by 6 is how much? 6 multiplied by 4 is how much? It's 24, right? And then what happens is that you're going to do what? We're going to say x, we are applying for a method, this with this, this with that, this with this, and this with that. And x multiplied by x is how much? It's x squared. Remember, when you have two brackets, you apply for a method. X multiplied by x is x squared. X multiplied by negative 2, it's negative 2x. Negative 2x multiplied by negative 2x, it's negative 2x. Negative 2 multiplied by negative 2, it's how much? It's plus 4. And then the other thing you need to get, you get x squared minus 2 minus 2, it's minus 4x plus 4, right? And then what happens is that the next step is that 4x, you rewrite it the way it is. You're trying to bring everything that is this side to that other side, because if you have the x which is squared here, you don't have to bring it that side and divide with the negative, you see, and then you bring that thing, all this thing that side, and then you have x squared minus 4x plus 4, and then you brought negative, you brought 4x, it's going to be negative 4x, you brought 24, which is going to be negative 24, and then it's equals to what? It's equals to 0, and then you have what? X squared minus what? Minus 4 minus 4x. Minus 4x minus 4x is minus 8x. They are like terms, guys. And then 4 minus 24, it's how much? You simply adding 4 to negative 24 there, it's negative 20, which is equals to 0. And then what happens is that you're going to open your brackets there, you're trying to solve it, right? And then x this side, x this side. And then what happens, the next one, is that you're going to put, you're going to find the factors of 20. You see, you find the factors of 20 such that when you add them, they give you negative 8. And when you multiply them, they give you negative 20, right? We are going to test that now. So our factors is 10 and 2. And remember, the bigger number takes the first sign. So we have something like this. And the bigger number is 10, it takes the first sign, which is negative. Our first sign is negative here. And then what happens is that we have what? Obviously, the second one is going to be what? A positive. Remember that. That's a trick that always works. And then what happens is that you have what? You have x, which is simply equal to 10, or x, which is simply, you're bringing to that side, right? It's going to be negative 2, right? And then you have your things there. But one of these answers may not be true. You test them by inserting them inside the equation so that they give you this one, right? You're going to test that on the calculator first. So what we're simply trying to do here, we are selecting the 10 that we got. We're trying to check whether this is true. We are placing the 10 that we got inside the square root. We placed it there, and then what happens is that you're pressing the whole thing on the calculator. If it gives you 10, it means that the equation is true, because 10 will be equal to 10. But if it gives you a different number, it means that it's a lie, right? And then if you press this thing on the calculator as a whole, it's going to give you 10, meaning 10 will be equal to 10. And then the equation is what? Is true. It means that 10 is true, right? And then you're going to place negative 2 right now and check whether it gives you 10 also. But if it doesn't give you 10, it means that the equation is not true, you see? You have something like this. And then you placed what? You placed the negative 2 that you got there inside the square root, you see? Here. And then what happens? You placed it here, you see? And then what happens is that if you press this thing on the calculator as a whole, it must give you 10. If it doesn't give you 10, it means that x is not equal to negative 2. And then you get a mark for that. Because of a lot of students forget to say not equal to something. Because you think that when you arrive here, you're done. You're testing first. And then if you press this thing on the calculator, it gives you 6, meaning that 6 will never be equal to 10. It means that this thing is not equal to that. And then what happens is simply means that you have to say this is not equal to, x is not equal to negative 2. And then you get a mark for that. And then you're done. You have 1.2 now, guys. And then what happens is what? It's 5 marks, right? And then what happens? The next thing you're going to do is that you're solving the equations simultaneously. Simultaneously means you need to get the value of x, both the values of x, and you need to get both the values of y. And then firstly, you start with the easiest equation. The easiest you can see is this one. It's not complex like this one. And then you're going to have what? 4x plus y, which is equals to 2. Because of x has a coefficient of 4, you're not taking it to the right. You're taking it to the right hand side. Reason being is that, like, you don't need to end up dividing and having fractions, because it will make the simultaneous complex. And then you're going to take that thing that side. You have y is equals to 2 minus 4x. And then this thing is your first equation, right? And then what happens is that this, you don't need to do it anything. This is the second equation. So you're going to do what? You're going to sub the first equation into the second equation. You get the first equation, remember, by making something a subject of the formula. And then you simply, when you see y, you put in the whole of this, right? So where we see y, we're going to put it. So we have 4x there, plus we have y, remember, we put in this. You have what? You have 2 minus 4x, and then you square it, is equals to what? It's equals to 8. And then what happens is that you have 4x plus you remember that when we have 2 here, we're doing what? We're splitting the brackets into 2. When we split the brackets into 2, we're going to have something like this. 2 minus 4x, which is equals to 8. And then what happens is that you have 4x, the 4x here, plus, and then 2 multiplied by 2 is how much? It's 4. 2 multiplied by negative 4x is how much? It's negative 8x. Negative 4x multiplied by 2 is how much? Is negative 8x. Negative 4x multiplied by negative 4x is how much? We have a positive there, and then 4 multiplied by 4 is how much? It's 16. 16, we have x multiplied by x, it's x squared, and then we're going to have something like that. We have 8 here, and then 4x plus, you have 4, and then negative 8 minus negative 8 is how much? It's negative 16x, and then you have plus 16x squared is equals to 8. And then what you're going to do next is that you're going to do it. You have the like term here, and you have the like term here, and then negative 16 plus 4 is how much? You have, firstly, write it in standard form. You have 16x. You have 16x here. It doesn't have a coefficient. It doesn't have a what? It doesn't have a like term, so you just write it there. And then the next thing you're going to do is that we said this term plus this one. And then what happens is that you're going to have negative 12x, and then plus 4. Plus 4, and then we bring the 8 this side. We have negative 8 now. We have 0 this side. And then what happens is you have 16x squared minus 12x, and then you have 4 minus 8. 4 minus 8 is how much? You're plusing is negative 4 is equals to 0. And then what happens is that you're going to divide everything by 4. And then when you divide everything by 4, 4 divided by this, it's simply how much? It's simply 4x squared. And then what you do is that you're going to have what? You said you're dividing everything by what? We're dividing everything by 4. And then what happens is that negative 12 divided by that is negative 3x. And then 4 divided by that, it's how much? It's negative 1. It's equals to 0. And then what happens is that you have this kind of equation. You can either use a quadratic equation, or you can do what? You can use the factorizing method. But I will advise you to use the factorizing method, right? Because when you use quadratic more often, what's going to happen is that, like, they will end up penalizing you. But I'm not saying don't use quadratic equation. You can use quadratic equation, but it's advisable to not use quadratic equation too much. You can use quadratic equation you can find the factors by pressing them on the calculator. I will show you how we do that. And then right now we're going to find the factors. And there are the factors. What you're going to do is that now this is equals to 0 and this is equals to 0, right? And then you're going to have what? You're going to have 4x plus 1 equal to 0, or x minus 1 is equals to 0. And then what happens is that you bring this side, and then you're going to simply have negative 1 over 4, because you be dividing by 4 there. And then what happens that x is equals to 1. You bring 1 that side. And then what happens is that you find the values of x. Now you can find the values of y by doing what? By subbing what you got here into the first equation. So we're going to do that. So when we sub the values of x that we got into equation number 1, we're going to have something like negative y is equals to 2 minus 4. And then you have the x here. Where you see x, you're going to put negative 1 over 4. And then you press that on the calculator. Or y, it's also equal to what? You have negative, and then you have what? 4 into, you have 1 here. You put 1 there, and then what happens is that you also put that in the calculator. If you don't know how to do it, you see. And then what happens, or if you don't want to make mistakes, and then you press the things on the calculator, you get the values of y, and then you get your 5 marks. You're out of there. So if you press a calculator, you find that y is equals to 3 and y is equals to -2, and then you're done. Simply like that, you're done. Alright guys, today we're going to stop on 1.2, and then when you stop on 1.2, we did 1.1 and 1.2 for question 1, DBE 2021. So what I'm trying to do is that we're going to do Algebra 1.1 and 1.2, and then after that we are also going to do what? We are also going to do other questions, guys. Please be patient. We're going to go to question 2. We're going to go up until we finish paper 1, and I'm also going to do paper 2, and then I'll upload the videos, and then you'll see the methods doing each and every question paper. What I'm doing here, guys, is that they're teaching you the content in what? They're teaching you the content at school, and then I'm doing what? I'm practicing question papers with you, so that you see the methods, and then you do what? You know how to do them. Thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe and come back to watch more. We will learn, guys. We are here to learn. Remember, I'm not only doing mathematics, I'm also doing life sciences and also physical sciences. So we are here to learn, guys. We will learn, we will learn, we will learn. Good day, everyone.